so far? Let me fire this up, and then I want to tell you a couple of stories, elements of which you may have heard on radio, but I don't feel like I can tell the full story when I'm on air, but I'd rather tell them tonight. And it's funny because I have a fact checker in the room from my youth. A buddy of mine, Carter Gardy, I had no idea that he would be here tonight. Stand up, Carter, let him get a look at you. We have the same hairstyle. No, you can't. I'm not on the hook for you. I'm on the hook for me. So listen, I want to tell you about the first time that I was ever on television. I'm very privileged. You know where you can find me now in a television world. But this is Bucks County that we're in. This is Lower Bucks. I grew up in Central Bucks. The county is roughly shaped like a rectangle, and the further north that you go, the more the politics change. The lower end of the county tends to be, if it's a butter knife, there's a man coming. That's what my mother would have said. The further north you go, the more independent, then rural and conservative that it becomes. So I grew up in Doylestown in Bucks County, and was the product of the public schools, the Central Bucks school system, K through 12. I went to the Doyle Elementary School, which is in the center of Doylestown, and then I guess the town fathers anticipated that there was going to be this great development boom, and there was, and they built schools in the more rural area, but they didn't have enough kids to populate them. And so from the Doyle Elementary School, instead of going to the Lenape Junior High School, which is where my buddy Carter went, I went to Hollycong Junior High School with a bunch of farm kids. Wait, somebody went to Hollycong? Really? Your daughter, okay. So you went to Hollycong? Okay. So I went to Hollycong. I was one of 6 from my elementary school who went to Hollycong. So it was a little unsettling. You know, it was almost like moving into an entirely new community. But the virtue of Hollycong is that it was a brand new school, and it was sophisticated, and it had a closed-circuit television system in it. And so morning announcements at Hollycong were via TV. You would sit there in homeroom, and you would look up at the television set, and your classmates would deliver the news and so forth. And that's how we learned the morning announcements. And I always wanted to be on television in that era, but I never made the cut. And I had a very good friend at the time named Chris Strand, and Chris was the sports anchor on the morning announcements. The closest that I got to being on television at Hollycong, Carter's laughing already, is that one day the film crew came to my gym class. And in that era, gym class, we all had the uniform, right? And not only did we have the uniform, but I remember Mr. Askew and Mr. Lill standing there with a tablet and checking off who came out of the shower and who did not. It was a different era. So I just got to get this thing fired up. So the film crew was there, and they were filming a commercial for gym class. I don't know what got into me, but I decided that I would moon the camera. And I did. And we all gathered round, and we looked at it, and we laughed. And like Nixon, I made a mistake, and I didn't burn that tape. And word then circulated among the faculty that I'd flicked a moon, right? So it gained steam, and it got to the point where the vice principal, Mr. Roberts, remember the vice principal was always the hatchet. My father was a guidance counselor at a neighboring junior high school, and he gets a telephone call from Mr. Roberts who says, "Walt, my dad, I regret to inform you that we're suspending Michael from school because he's exposed himself." And my parents have this image of me coming out of the men's room in like a London fog, you know, right? They were so relieved when they found, they're like, "Sure, suspend him, no problem." I remember that suspension that day meant that I went to the W.T. Grants. Anybody remember like the 5 and dime Grants? Grants was going out of business in our hometown that day. So my responsibility was to clean the garage. And then after I cleaned the garage, I went to the Grants going out of business sale. And that's what I remember about my mooning experience. Now, funny thing is, fast forward from, what would that have been, 1974, 5? Fast forward to the pandemic, it's 2020, and I'm going out on the road on a speaking tour that was a precursor to the Mingle Project. This was for things I wish I knew before I started talking. And we sold tickets for 2 events in Philly at the Suzanne Roberts Theater. They both sold out jiffy quick. We sold tickets, I don't remember why, in Arizona and then in Seattle, Washington, and they sold out. And COVID hits, and I can't go anywhere to deliver the speeches. So I had the material ready to go, and I decide maybe what I should do is commandeer the Bucks County Playhouse in New Hope, here in Bucks County, and deliver the show to an empty theater. Only I needed a film crew to record it. And who did I turn to but Chris Strand, who was the sportscaster back at Hollycong back in the day, with whom I've remained friendly. He brought in a crew. They were socially distant. We recorded it. I showed the sizzle reel to Jeff Zucker, who was the president and CEO at CNN. He said, I'll put it on air for an hour on a Saturday night, which he did. We still had more material in the can, and so Hulu bought it. That sounds like it was financially rewarding. It wasn't, but they put it on television, and that's how that special got on TV with my junior high school buddies, professional film crew from Bucks County.